everyone, welcome to the channel. This is week 3 of Christ in all of Scripture. So we're going to go ahead and open up to week 3. So they're starting with the Old Testament on this one. So we'll go ahead and read through the passages in Genesis. So Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Genesis 1:26 through 31. Then God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. They will rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sea, the livestock, the whole earth, and the creatures that crawl on the earth. So God created man in his own image. He created him in the image of God. He created them male and female. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. Rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and every creature that crawls on the earth. God also said, look, I have given you every seed-bearing plant on the surface of the entire earth, and every tree whose fruit contains seed. This will be food for you. For all the wildlife on the earth, for every bird of the sky, and for every creature that crawls on the earth, everything having the breath of life in it, I have given every green plant for food. And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good indeed. Evening came, and then morning the 6th day. So I did start to highlight this and then realized I needed to wait and do it on a separate page. So I kind of got started ahead of time here. So let me just go ahead and get us ready. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is highlight any words or phrases that point to Christ. So a lot of these I felt pointed to Christ. So the first line in there, then God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. They will rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and the livestock in the whole earth. So that one I highlighted as well. I also highlighted these two. Then I highlighted this. God bless them. This will be food for you. God saw that it was good. And those were the ones that I highlighted. So we'll go ahead and walk through that a little bit. So for the first one, this whole section here, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So Jesus existed from the beginning of the time. So that's what I had noted on that one. All right. And then on the second one, where it says, then God said, let us make man in our image. I had here that Jesus was in human form. So he came to earth on human form. And also in the second part where they will rule, Jesus had dominion over all the earth, which includes sin. So I'm not going to write that in right now because it just takes a little bit more time. All right. And then for the second part, so God created man in his image and created him in the image of God. So this I had to do with incarnation. Jesus could become a man because deity and humanity are compatible. So that's what I had for that. And then God blessed them. So Jesus blessed all of us with his blood by dying on the cross for our sins. I will fill all this in at the end so you guys can have a picture of everything. And then also I had Jesus is the living water. So when you do communion, typically, at least at our church, you do, here's my body broken for you with the bread, and then here's my blood spilled for you with the wine or juice. So I equated that to there. And then God saw that all he had made and it was very good. So Jesus, this link to Jesus' final words is, it is finished. So when he was on the cross, he said, it is finished. And so that's what I linked that to, all of that pointing to Christ. All right. So make note of any attributes. So the first one is he is eternal. So he's in the beginning. He is always was, is, and always will be. The next thing I had actually for that as well is he's omnipotent. So all powerful, and his strength is unlimited. So he created everything. So in my opinion, that means he is omnipotent. All right. So then the next section where he talks about making in his own image, I had that he was sovereign. So he governs over all things and is in complete control. All right. Then let's see for the next section here, because this section is pretty much the same where he created in his image. God bless them. So I said he was a loving God. All right. Then in the next section, I had that he was self-sufficient. So this says God was not created but exists by power alone. So God doesn't need food. He exists by power alone, but we do. So we have to rely on him for that. So God saw that all was good. So I put down good for that one. I also marked down in here that he was gracious, because he says a couple times about ruling the fish of the sea, etc. And then he says again about ruling. So I thought that that made him gracious. So just put that back down. Gracious, kind, giving us gifts and benefits we do not deserve. So that was something he gave us that we really didn't deserve. All right, so then the next section is circle any verbs. So we went ahead and circled those. So a lot of the same ones kind of over and over, but, you know, we just circled them all. So it says, what does he do in these verses? So I had that he created the heavens and the earth. He created man in his image, male and female. He blessed mankind. He provided food. And all he created was good. So those were the things that I had that he did. So then we underline words and phrases that repeat. So I had in here, let us make man in our own image, and they will rule fish, birds, etc. So then here he says the same thing, created in his own image, created in his own image. And then down here, he says ruling again. So those were the ones that I saw repeated. And then this asks, how does God demonstrate his goodness to the first people? These things that I put down, and you may have more or different. He blesses them, provides food, creates man and woman in his image, and puts them as ruler over the earth. Now, the other thing that I had was a couple of extra verses that I found that kind of relate back to some of these verses on the page. So for this one, I had Psalm 93:2. There's tons of different verses you can find for these. These are just some that I found, 1 through 2. This one had Colossians 1:15. Here, this relates back to Genesis 2. And this is relating back to when he created Adam and Eve. Let's see if I have some more here. I have for this section, a lot of Psalms I found. 104:14. This one, Psalm 104:24 and 31. So the other thing that I want to point out is this right here, which is let us. So what I found on that one is when it says us, it refers back to the Trinity. So we're creating man in our image, and man is different from all other created beings. Humans possess personality, morality, spirituality, and then it talks about the food, which I thought was interesting because I never thought about this, but basically in the food, he's saying that we can eat the vegetation. So he's talking about plants and things here, never mentions animals or meat. And so they had mentioned food, vegetarians before the flood. And then after the flood, they talked about being able to eat meat. And so I had a note on that one. I'll just stick it here. And I had Genesis 9:3 for that one. So that was really interesting because I really never thought about that, I guess, from that aspect. And I never actually picked up on it. Okay, so then for the next section, it is Colossians 1:15 through 17. Highlight any words or phrases that point to Christ. So, all right. So he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. Now, because this is a New Testament, Jesus is already here, so this was a little bit easier, I felt, to figure out like where things pointed to Christ than in the Old Testament. I felt like that was a little bit harder. For everything was created by him in heaven and on earth, the visible and the invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and by him all things are held together. All things hold together. Okay. So the next thing we want to do, I mean, honestly, I felt like I could highlight this whole passage, but these are the things that I highlighted. So make a note of any attributes of God seen in the text. The first one that I put up here was incomprehensible. So incomprehensible is that God's high above and beyond human understanding. And so he is in the image of the invisible God. So I felt that that fit right in there. Again, it talks about in heaven and on earth. So I saw that as sovereign. It's really hard because I feel like there's so many of these that fit into, but I don't want to write like everyone down for every single one. So I just try to keep it, as clear as possible, or the best one that I can find that fits into the phrase there. So all things have been created through him and for him. This is infinite. Again, he is before all things, eternal. And I think those are all the ones that I had. Oh, one more. And everything was created by him. And I had that as good. Yep. Okay, so circle words or phrases that also appear in Genesis 1. Okay, so the first thing was the image of God. So we were created in the image of God. So everything was created by him. In heaven and earth, that's what they talked about. He created the heavens and the earth. And he is before all things. So in the first part of here, it says, in the beginning, God created. So he was before all things. The rulers and authorities too. Because it does say about ruling. So in the first one, so we could circle that as well. All right. Then underline anything that Jesus does or has done in these verses. So I have, for everything was created by him. All things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things. By him all things hold together. Just to go through a few things. So when they talk about he is the image of God, they're talking about Jesus. And then when we talk about the firstborn over all creation, so Jesus being before all created things. So Jesus is the same. He's part of the Trinity. So, he always is, was, and will be. So in here, for everything was created by him. Jesus is author of all creation. And then the visible and the invisible. This points to Jesus as man and deity. So I'll fill all this out, and at the end we'll show this. And here I had whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. So for this, if we look at Ephesians 1:21, this talks about Jesus being above all. And then, of course, this one is he always existed. And then again, this, and by him all things hold together. So I found Hebrews 1:3. And it says, Jesus is the creator and creation is kept together by his power. So I thought that that was interesting because when they talk about this hold together, I had to really look that up because I was like, I don't really know what that means. But this says about him being the person that holds creation together by his power. So then a couple of other things that I found was the firstborn, which was Romans 8:29 and John 1:14. And then for everything is good, I found Colossians 1:15. And I think those were all the verses that I had written down already. So those were all the things that I got for that one. I'm looking forward to any comments you may have, other items you may see, other opinions, anything you might have interpreted a little bit differently. Always looking forward to that. So please feel free to go ahead and comment on it. I hope that you're enjoying it and doing this study with me, or at least getting something from it. Again, the passages will be in the description as I've done before in case you want to look them up and do it yourself, or if you have the book, you can compare. But that's it. So thank you guys for spending the time with me today. And don't forget to like and subscribe.